Hi, welcome to this economics class. In today's session, I'm looking at international trade, and in particular, I'm focusing on absolute advantage and comparative advantage theory. In economics, the concept of comparative advantage and absolute advantage are based on certain assumptions. The following are the assumptions. Number one, we assume that there are only two countries in the world. Number two, we assume that the two countries are only producing two different types of products. Number three, we assume there are no transport costs, no barriers to trade. Number four, we assume that resources within each country are easily transferred from one industry to the other. What is absolute advantage? A country is said to have an absolute advantage in the production of a good if it can produce the good more efficiently and cheaply than the other country. Efficiency means the country is using fewer resources to produce those goods. What's the implication of absolute advantage? The implication is that countries must then specialize in producing goods in which it has absolute advantage and import from other countries the other goods that cannot be produced. Comparative advantage. What is comparative advantage? A country is said to have comparative advantage if it can produce the good at a lower opportunity cost. This is true even if the country has got absolute advantage in the production of both goods. So let's look at an exercise. Question 1. The following table below shows the amount of cars and copper that each country can produce per month. Assume each country has an equal opportunity of resources and devotes half of its resources to car production and half of the resources to copper production. Question: show with some illustration in which country the absolute advantage for each good lies, and in each case estimate the total output for each good if the countries decided to specialize on absolute advantage basis. So absolute advantage, we've said the country is producing with fewer resources or the country is producing cheaply. So just by looking at the table here, you can notice that in terms of car production, Zambia produces more cars with the same resources than South Africa. In terms of copper production, South Africa produces more of copper than Zambia. So Zambia has got absolute advantage in car production. South Africa has got absolute advantage in copper production. So in your solution for 1, you will say absolute advantage for cars lies with Zambia. Absolute advantage for copper lies with South Africa. One is done. Question 2. In each case, estimate the output. Now let's estimate the output. We say the implication of this is that each country must specialize in producing a good in which it has absolute advantage. So we've said absolute advantage in this case lies with Zambia, so Zambia must absolute advantage for car production lies with Zambia, so Zambia must abandon copper production and use the resources to produce cars, and Zambia will be able to double car production. Absolute advantage for copper production lies with South Africa, so South Africa must ignore the production of cars and focus on the production of copper, and I will be able to double that, and the output So world's output is going to change. World's output is now 400. World's output this side is 3,000. World's output, that's 3,000. Is this better than we had before? Definitely yes. Before output was 302.5, the total was 28. Now world's output is 403,000, the total is 3,400. Let's look at the second question. Question 2. Question 2 from your Zika Revision Kit 2017 DA3. The following table describes the production of steel and maize in two countries, and the question is show with some illustrations in which country the comparative advantage for each good lies. In each case, estimate the total output for each good if countries decided to specialize based on comparative advantage. Let me just remind you, comparative advantage means the country is producing at a lower opportunity cost. So what you need to do here is to calculate the opportunity cost or relative costs. So how do you do that? You have to create an opportunity cost table. But let me give you a clue of how you calculate opportunity cost and comparative advantages. So you will say comparative advantage for steel will be calculated as follows. Take the output for maize, divide it with the output for steel, divided by the output for steel. Then comparative advantage for maize will be equals to get the output for steel divided with the output for maize. Okay, so that's the clue. So let's calculate the opportunity costs. So for steel, we've said it's maize over steel. So maize was, output for maize is 60 divided by the output for steel. So we have 1.5. And then output for maize for country B is 50 divided by 20. You have 50 divided by 20, you have 2.5. Comparative advantage for maize is steel divided by maize. So take steel output, which was 40, divided by maize output 60. You should get 0.67. It's a rounded off figure. Then for country B, steel production was 20 divided by maize production 50. Here you should have, after calculating that in your calculator, you should have 0.4. So 0.4. So you will notice that in terms of country A has a better opportunity cost in steel than in maize production. Country B has a better opportunity cost in maize production than steel production. Please ignore those other figures. So that's what we have. So the conclusion is country A must specialize in steel. Comparative advantage for country A lies, comparative advantage for steel lies with country A. Then comparative advantage for maize lies with country B. Yeah, country B. So in other words, country B must concentrate on maize production, country A must concentrate on steel production. So how much are we going to produce? What will be the world's output if that happens? This is still part of the solution. So world's output So we have said country A is focusing on steel production, so country A must abandon maize production, shift the energy to steel production, and they will double that, and they will produce 80. Country B must abandon steel production, shift the focus to maize production, and they will double that, will produce 100. So the total world's output will be, for maize it will be 100, for steel it will be 80. Question, is this better than we had before? Let's see. Before, countries were producing the following results. Steel total was 60, maize total was 110. So total put together, that's 170. How much are we producing now after countries have specialized? It's 100 plus 80, we are producing 180. So this is better than before. Thank you so much for listening to this particular video. I'll do another video to answer another question on comparative advantage and absolute advantage, just to make sure you've understood. Bye.